Great. So my name is Carmen Melendez. I work at the Worcester Public Schools, and I am the Director of Multilingual Education. And I'm here to present on building bridges for multilingual students to participate in advanced coursework. Like I said, I'm very excited about this work. I've been doing this for at least 20 years. And I am excited about sharing some of the learnings through this journey. And hopefully you'll be able to get some resources or ideas that you could implement at your schools or districts. So I would like to start with a little icebreaker. Also, it gives a couple of minutes for other folks to join in. So we're going to do a waterfall activity in the chat. I'm going to be giving you a couple of questions. You type them in the chat, and then when I give you the signal, everyone puts or send their answers over, and we'll get to read them all together. And I'm going to have Rachel help me out, read some answers that come through the chat. All right, so here we go. So I don't know if this picture is familiar for many of you. I know that my desktop looks a little bit like this. So the question is, how many tabs do you have open in your desktop? Or guesstimate if you have too many to count? And how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel organized, focused, or overwhelmed? So I want you to put a number and then the statement overwhelmed or focused. And then when I give you the signal, you'll be able to put that in the chat, and we'll be able to read off some of your answers. And you can guess. Okay. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. You can put it now in the chat.
All right, we have 5 to 10, 15 focus, 9 focus, 10 overwhelmed, 10 overwhelmed, 14 a bit overwhelmed, 41, 10, 28 working on a few things at once, 26, 40 focused, 14 overwhelmed, 5 tabs, focused, 20 crazy, 9 organized, 31, 1 because I'm on my phone, overwhelmed, 12 overwhelmed, 20 overwhelmed, organized.
Great, thank you for sharing. I know that these features, technology features, are great to help us be organized, and it could be really helpful in helping us be focused, but at the same time, it could feel overwhelming because you have so many things to work on at the same time. So that is our icebreaker activity. We have a lot of learning to do, a lot of brainstorming, and really have discussions with each other. So I'm just going to get started with the presentation. I wanted to start with this quote that comes from the Department of Justice in the United States Department in 2015 that released a Dear Colleague letter informing school districts that they needed to ensure that multilingual students had access to advanced coursework and accelerated opportunities. So I wanted to start right off the bat with this statement because it is very important that districts and schools understand that if we don't give access to students, multilingual students, to these types of opportunities, we are violating their rights. So we have to ensure we have the structures, the resources, the support to ensure multilingual students have equal access. So this is really about social justice, equity, and access for multilingual students. So having this understanding, I think it's important that, and I think all of you that are here come from the same world and understand that we should not just do something because it's a mandate by the government or by the Department of Education. It should really be something that we feel is the right thing to do. So what do we do with this information? Yes, it's a mandate. It's something we need to do to ensure equity and access. But what are some of the steps that districts and schools could take to ensure we're not just doing something because we feel obligated, but because we know it's the right thing and these students really deserve the best education possible and available in our districts and schools. So to get us started thinking about some of these steps, I wanted to, oh, I went too far. I wanted to start thinking about three things to get us started on this conversation at the school level, at the district level. Not sure the different roles represented here. But the number one thing that we have to be thinking about is changing the mindset of people and ensuring that we have an asset-based thinking for multilingual students, and why we think it's important that they have access to these courses and advanced opportunities. So for that, we have to really think about and have conversations, deep conversations about these topics and why we think our students really need to have these opportunities, and really think about that our students that are learning language still have the same cognitive ability to learn new information, to be critical thinkers, and really learning a language should not be a barrier. And sometimes I feel in conversations, there is this misconception that someone learning English cannot function, cannot perform well in advanced coursework. So the first thing that we really have to think about, what are some ways, whether we share what the Department of Justice has mandated, or we share some research or some good practices, but really having people think about that our multilingual students have the same brain and same capacity, intelligence that any other students. And if they're going to learn language, whether they're in level 1 courses or AP courses, they're going to learn language. So the most important thing is that we provide access, but of course we want to make sure it's within an environment that is supportive, that we have the proper scaffolding, instructional supports, but also our teachers have the right resources, and even outside resources, district-wide resources to really provide support for both teachers and students. But this mindset that multilingual students can't do or function, we really need to tackle that myth to ensure they're able to have access. If we tackle the mindset, that is one barrier less to ensure they have equal access. The second thing is really think about the institutional values. You know, what are the values? What do we value as an institution? I know as an individual, we do value our students. We do know their strength, their assets, and what they bring into our educational community. But as an institution, what do we value? And we need to do a check on that, because part of those values should be equity and access. And if we really think about all students, we really need to think about all students, and that these students really deserve and is their right to have this opportunity and not be prevented or not even offered these opportunities because we think, they cannot perform. So thinking about what are the institutional values, and think about how can we leverage those values to think about, okay, now let's think about multilingual students, and how can our values really help inform our actions and decisions that we make, because it's really up to the adults, the educators in the system, to make decisions that are aligned with values that really honor and our students' strengths, and really values the opportunities they also deserve. Oftentimes we say, well, they never sign up for those courses. They never went to this opportunity. But as you know, these students are learning not only a new language, a new culture, but really learning how to navigate a new system. So the ownership should be on us to ensure that these opportunities are provided. And in thinking about the core values, we could think about making the right decisions for these students. And the last thing I want to mention, really, I want to spend most of the time really talking about this because I think this is one of the high leverage things that we could do as a district or as an educator to really create systemic change. And it's really leveraging data, looking at data, using data to not only problem solve, identified concerns, but also think about finding solutions by using data and really monitoring the success of our students through data. So if I were to give you three major buckets around where do we start, would be around changing to an asset-based mindset and thinking about all the opportunities that these students should have because they do have the strength and the capacity to handle these opportunities as long as they have the proper supports and the nurturing environment. And then look thinking about our values and sometimes we don't think our values regularly enough and how they inform our decisions. But in a topic like this, values play an important part because if you have a value, you're going to make the right decision and really try to move the work towards that value that you have as an educator and at times as an individual. The third thing that I just shared with you is using data to really create systemic change. So I want to share with you some principles that I've learned through reading this book. It is targeted to school counselors, but the concepts are so universal that could be applied to any setting and really be utilized and implemented by any educator. And I just want to make sure I gave credit to this resource that I used to really outline all the steps that we could take in using data to really create systemic change. And the title of this book is very applicable and is interrupting racism for equity and social justice for our students. So like I said in this book, there are about 6 principles that I'm going to share with you. And I'm actually going to use an example, a lived example from my own practice on how I use these principles to really provide the opportunities for our multilingual students to participate in advanced coursework. So in an overview of these principles are the following. Principle 1, understand the need. Principle 2, engage all multiple actors. Principle 3, map the system. 4, work with others. 5, distribute leadership and ownership. And 6, foster a culture of learning. We're going to review each of these principles with some real examples from my practice. Okay, so understanding the need is first step and first principle. And this encompasses 4 areas. Number 1, the actual data analysis, pulling the data that is going to give you an idea what the need is. By using the data to analyze and to identify a need, really define, articulate the problem that exists. After that, you hypothesize, and then you create an action planning. So this goes under understanding the need. So let's break it down a little bit more. So data analysis. So a few years ago, I used to oversee the AP program at a local school, high school. And as the AP coordinator, I and also a school counselor for multilingual students at the same time, we were able to see that there was big discrepancies and inequities in the performance of and participation of multilingual students in AP coursework. Now, for a few years, we had removed many barriers for students to participate in advanced placement program. Like we removed prerequisites, like being part of an honors class the year before, or getting a certain score on MCAS, or being recommended by a teacher, or being on the AP potential list. And even though we removed many barriers, we saw that there was no increase in students, multilingual students participating in AP coursework. As you see in 2007A, we had 47 students and 63 tests from those students. And then in 2011, we had 36. So things didn't change. And actually, I did a 10-year data analysis. I'm only sharing 4 of those. It was the same trend. Also, that data was really gave me a lot of started a lot of uneasiness, and really created more questions. So I wanted to also collect some qualitative data by doing some student interviews. So in looking at the data, I came up with a problem, and I was able to define it. So the problem that was defined is, and on average, the AP enrollment among Latino students has been less than 10% of our total Latino students enrollment. So at that time, we had about 500 Latino students. The majority were English learners, and only 10% every single year for the last 10 years were enrolling in advanced placement coursework. So that was the problem. So we were able to articulate the problem. Then based on the hypothesis, so in this hypothesis, what helped me was really have those interviews with those students to really think about why is that, and I could understand 10 years ago, but in the recent years we really removed many barriers to prevent students to participating, but still the enrollment did not increase. In some cases actually decreased. So this is the hypothesis, and this really came out of conversations with students, Latino students that I thought were AP potential material, but never really enrolled in any AP courses during their trajectory at the high school level. So this was the hypothesis. Latino students may have a misconception that they don't meet the traditional profile of an AP student. Therefore, they don't think they're able to sign up for AP courses. So this is the hypothesis. They're not signing up because they think they can't. They're not the AP type of students. They, for the most part, see a certain type of profile of an AP student, and they don't think they match that profile. So therefore, they didn't think they could. So now that we have a problem defined and you have a hypothesis, now you could think about an action plan. And I'm going to tell you this, I didn't come up with this all by myself. Later on in another principle, I'm going to share with you all the people that really play a part of this work. So we were able to think about, okay, if this is a hypothesis, what can we do to really change that mindset from the student perspective? So we started doing family outreach, and we outlined this action plan, and we implemented this action plan. We thought that family outreach through churches, local community organizations, inviting families to our AP nights using interpreters. Those were going to be great opportunities for families and students to learn about not only the benefits of advanced placement, but how they could enroll and how they should be part of this. At the time, because we thought, okay, the problem sits in the mind of the student as far as how they perceive themselves, we started doing multiple assemblies with Latino students, multilingual students, and we brought different professionals from the community that looked like them, that had similar trajectory. They came to this country, they had to learn English, they went to college, they took advanced courses, how they were able to meet their goals, and how education really played an important role in that. So we wanted to really have students have a vision for themselves and really think about the opportunities that they are able to have when they take advantage of rigorous coursework. We also started thinking about some of the changes that were not really supportive and that were really limiting our students from participating in other AP courses. One of them was just changing the school policy. At the time, only 12th graders were able to take AP Spanish. And we sort of brought this to the administration to really think about changing that policy, adding a second AP Spanish literature course to really have students, if they start AP Spanish early on, you want to have a sequence of those courses to continue build momentum, confidence. And we really targeted the AP Spanish because that's where a lot of the students were, for those that actually ended up in AP courses, that was the most popular course that students, that Latinos and multilingual students sign up for. So I said, if we start early on building their confidence in an AP course like AP Spanish, they'll be able to really think about, okay, I could do AP. I'm an AP student already. Why don't I take another AP? So we also want to create, we wanted to create a easy flow or sequence by creating the opportunity for a second AP Spanish course for those that wanted to continue that trajectory. But what we learned, and I'll share later what happened, was students were venturing out into other courses that were not just AP Spanish. The other thing is that we wanted to create other opportunities that were intentional in making sure multilingual students were part of an AP experience. And those courses were really very intimidating for them because they would hear so many things about AP program and AP courses that they felt really, really intimidated by that. So we proposed something really out of the box to the administration and to the teacher and of AP Human Geography, and we were able to create a cohort of multilingual students from different EPL levels to have a section of AP Human Geography where the teacher knew that every single student in front of him was a multilingual student. So the scaffold, the support was very intentional, was very planned ahead of time. And we ensured that teacher felt prepared and equipped to do that because it was really an experiment. We wanted to learn what would happen if we have multilingual students outside of AP Spanish in big numbers, and what kind of supports would a teacher need to really make this a successful experience for both students and teachers. The other thing we tried we outlined as part of our action plan was to really do a transcript review and recommendations. So we pulled all of our transcript for all our multilingual students, and we had a team, a committee that really worked on this to think about where are the missed opportunities here. We have really kids that come from our different countries that already are applied students. They like to study, they do well in certain subjects. Why can't we push these students to really be intentional? You've had good grades for many years, even in your own country, in social studies. Why don't you think about an AP social study course? So we really were intentional. Okay, let's identify students that have strengths in their transcripts, and reach out to them. Hey, do you know we have an AP Human Geography course? Do you know we have AP Psychology? I think you'll do great in this course. Let me tell you more about it. And then a few more things I want to share with you is promotional materials. We changed our promotional materials to have pictures and languages in the languages of the students. So we had shirts made out in multiple languages about being an AP student, being a potential student. Also, all of our posters, we changed the pictures to look like our multilingual students, and all of our posters were translated in many of the languages represented in our school. And what that did was all of a sudden we had students stopping and looking and reading at that poster and thinking, oh, wow, what is this AP course? And they would go to the guidance counselor to learn more about it because in the poster, that's what we said, or come to our AP night to learn more about it. And then as part of the action plan also included, okay, if we're going to recruit these students, we would better have a good plan to ensure they have the support they need. That included an AP boot camp before they enroll in their first AP course, and then create an AP Learning Support Center that included tutoring from and support from an ESL teacher and also from bilingual college students. So as you see, there were a lot of things. It wasn't just one thing, but this was an action plan that the team came up with. And then once we came up with this action plan, we said, okay, let's implement it. And the results you'll see at the end of this presentation were amazing. So, so that is the first principle, really understanding the need. And that includes data analysis, that includes defining the problem, creating a hypothesis, and based on that hypothesis, creating an action plan. So we're going to go on our first breakout room. Okay, I'm going to have Rachel really help me out with this. So in your breakout room, I want you to think about your context, whether you're at the district level or at a school. What data points would you like to explore further to help you define a problem and hypothesis and action plan for your multilingual students? What is it that you're trying to change? I know the title of this presentation was how to support and build bridges for our multilingual students to take advanced coursework. But are there other areas you want our students to really have access and be successful? So think about, I only use AP data, but think about how would you go about this when you go back to your school or district? What kinds of data would you like to pull to really think about the issues at hand, identify and understanding the need, and hopefully come up with an action plan? So we're going to give you 10 minutes to have that conversation with each other, and then we'll come back.
Great. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for having the discussion. There are a few questions that came about, and I'll try to address them now. There was a question around, what kinds of things can you do to ensure that multilingual students have access to rigorous coursework? I mentioned a few things, but if I could reiterate a few of the big action steps that we took, we really looked at, and I have a slide on this actually, and thinking about mapping the system and looking at barriers and opportunities embedded in the system. So you'll learn more about that, but I mentioned a few things already around leveraging AP Spanish, thinking about some of the school policy, and I saw them as low-hanging fruit. Changing the grade requirement for AP Spanish was a low-hanging fruit. Like, why just limit 12th graders? What can you move it down to 9th and 10th graders, and then create this sequence of 2 AP Spanish courses to allow students to really progress, really see themselves as smart, intelligent, capable of handling coursework, and really build that confidence. Remember, our hypothesis says that students saw themselves as not capable, or that did not meet the requirement of what an AP student should look like. So we wanted to tackle that mentality by creating this opportunity for them. So that was a big action step that really supported our problem that we defined. The other thing was really thinking about, our families, really leveraging families. This was a great opportunity to really involve and empower families with knowledge, information. And let me tell you, in all the family events that we ran family breakfast. We went to the churches, we went to the YMCA and invited families to that. to hear the same presentation. We invited them to AP nights and we use interpreters. Um, most of the parents left so excited about AP for their students, they were calling their guidance counselor the next day. How can my child, and I have a few anecdotes where parents actually made the students, against the students' will, if you will, take AP coursework because they were like, our families want the best for their children. And our families that come from other countries, all of them really want their best. And many are making decisions to come to this country because they want better opportunities. So once they know this, taking advanced coursework is really a pathway to ensure our students are college and career ready, that they're competitive when it's time to apply for college, for scholarship. They see all the benefits, they want it, and they push for it. So so those are just for me were easy things, easy in the sense that it didn't really take much. It took time and effort, but they were like easy things that we never really did before, but they were not hard to do. We just needed to take the time to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about barriers and opportunities when we're thinking about the system to really ensure we have these opportunities. The other thing is that there was a question around how do we ensure people look at our students from an asset base, and really highlighting what they bring. Our students bring language, they bring culture, they bring experiences. And one of the things that we did, one of the tasks that I had this committee do is really look at their students' transcript. Is one of the data points that show us their trajectory as a student. Sometimes we ignore even the grades from other countries, thinking that other countries' education is less than our American education. But really, we need to consider everything, all their trajectory as a student. And we looked at the full transcript, even transcripts from other countries, to look at these students' strengths. So we went with an asset-based approach. When we look at transcript, where are the areas of opportunity here? If we see students that have A's and B's in math and science, we should say, okay, we will make a note, science, social studies. And then we gave piles to each guidance counselor. Go talk to the students around social studies AP offerings and why they may be able to why they may like that course. I mean, if you've taken social studies for 3 or 4 years and you pull A's and B's, it's a subject you commend, you most likely like, and you'll be able to do well. That strategy really worked. We were able to really get a lot of students sign up to AP that otherwise would not have taken AP or honors courses, just because we went through an asset-based approach and looked at the strength as a student from the transcript perspective. So that's just one idea. I know that in one of the breakout groups, I heard the scheduling component, it is a nightmare. And we really have to think about creating a schedule both at elementary and secondary, which is more, and I agree with the person that shared this, the secondary scheduling is more complicated because students need to take courses for graduation. There are many more offerings, many more things students want to do. So, but we have to be intentional and work with the administration to really think about how can we create a schedule that doesn't limit and put barriers to multilingual students to take advantage of AP courses. So we recommend our schools to create their ESL schedule first and then the AP schedule. Oftentimes they do that AP schedule first and then try to retrofit everything else. But that is a recommendation. You're thinking proactively and thinking about, we want to make sure students take advantage of honors and AP, then we got to create the schedule, the opportunity, that platform that would facilitate that kind of experience for our students. So let me progress because there's so much more I would like to share with you. Okay, the second principle, engage all multiple actors. So what we did here, like I said, all of this sounds like a lot of work, but I did enjoy it by myself. We really looked around who should be at the table. So we thought about what kind of expertise we want to have at the table, and we created a team structure where we had ESL teachers, of course, we had AP teachers, we had general ed teachers, we had special ed teachers, we had someone from administration be at the table. We even reached out to the district because at some point we knew we needed some district support. And we invited them to be part of this committee and said, we want to change the landscape of the opportunities for our multilingual students. We believe you could be part of this change. You have a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge from your content, from working with students. We love to have you at the table. So, and then we created a team and thinking about being really organized in the teaming structure and really thinking about having variety in the experience and the voices at the table. And we set goals and we together look at the data. So when I share, we understanding the need, it wasn't just me. Initially, it was like, okay, there's something wrong with it, with this. Let's bring people together to help us really think about what's going on. And I did not want to accept this was just a fact. We just have to deal with it. You know, students do not want to take AP. So why persist? And that didn't set well with me. And understanding, if all of our multilingual students have dreams, have visions and passions, but they don't have taken advantage of these opportunities, I could help them prepare the pathway for those opportunities that they want to have, then they're not seeing the full picture, or we're not providing the structure to ensure they take advantage of these opportunities. So we set clear goals for this meeting. We wanted to identify the problem, really come up with an action plan, implement it, and monitor. And we developed those action steps together. We hypothesized together. We looked at the transcripts together. And then we met regularly. And with that, it was a powerful thing because it wasn't just an ESL teacher or the guidance director, or the AP coordinator, or just the principal. Everyone that every stakeholder, even we had parents also be part of some of these meetings. Every stakeholder had a voice and a desire to make a shift. And when we implemented many of these things, it was wonderful because it wasn't just one voice promoting this. It was just all the people from the different, and we were really also strategic in picking people that were department heads for social studies or department head for math and ESL department head, teachers from our bilingual programs, different people with years of experience and who had positions of influence within the school structure. So they could also be advocates for this shift as well. So this was a very strategic action step, and it's listed as a principle that would ensure you're able to dismantle barriers for our students. So I'm going to, what time is it? We've been, I'm gonna give the break maybe a little bit more. I'm gonna do 10 more minutes and then we'll go on a break. Make sure you have a break, a visual break. What I wanna share here with you is the third principle. And this was very critical. And we did it as a team together where we outlined, okay, let's think about the barriers that exist in our system, in our school, and what opportunities we already have. So we didn't want to just look at this as a problem, but how can we leverage good things that are happening? Because I believe in every school there are wonderful things that are happening, great practices that sometimes we don't scale up and we don't leverage them enough. So we identified some of the barriers. I mentioned some of them already. We had the AP Spanish. We brought it down to 9th and 10th grade instead of being just a 12th grade opportunity. So that was a barrier that we perceived. There were still some mindsets in some teachers, even though we had removed this prerequisite, there's still the mindset was there that if they have low scores in MCAS, if they're EPLs 1s and 2s, emergent bilinguals, that somehow correlated to them or their ability to handle this type of coursework. So we had to have actually very serious conversation, even at the team structure, where we had to challenge some of that. But we saw that as a barrier, still this lingering mindset from years of persistent inequities and systemic racism that really prevented students. And part of the reason is that people didn't really think they belong in those classes because they thought they're still learning English. They shouldn't be taking this course or that course. They can't do it. Also, there was a concern from AP teachers that their low AP scores was going to somehow impact their evaluation. So those were some of the barriers that we identify. And I could also add another one here that was mentioned, scheduling. Scheduling is always a barrier, not having a schedule that really nurtures these types of opportunities. Some of the opportunity that we said we need to ride the wave on our strength here as a school is that we had excellent AP teachers with great track records. How can we bring them and make them allies to this effort? So for example, the AP Human Geography course that we taught, it was taught by a social studies teacher. He was department head. He taught this course for 9th graders who were in a gifted program. And all those students had qualifying scores every single year. All those 9th graders say, oh, if you could teach 9th graders and have them be able to do a course like this and get qualifying scores, you know your content, you know how to teach AP. How can we bring you in to really be an ally for this effort? And we actually put, when we identify him as a strength, an asset to our community, we reach out to him and say, hey, what do you think about this idea of creating just one section next year? Let's pilot this, let's experiment. He was really nervous, but he was willing to try it out. And actually, he taught this class for 3 consecutive years after this until he retired, and actually became his favorite class. And he said, because he was department head, one of the greatest thing and shifts in a culture of our schools and mindset of teachers was this teacher in this course, because as a teacher, he saw how much effort, how much work, the work ethic, the enthusiasm, the interest. He said, my multilingual students in this course worked just as hard, if not harder, than my students in the gifted program. And he, as a department head, met with his department and said, from now on, I want all multilingual students, regardless of the AP level, in honors courses. So thinking about changing the mindset and the culture among the adults, that was one of the best things that happened to promote this open mind and really embracing all of our students in these type of courses. He said, look, they just need support and capital. This is my experience. I was nervous about it, but look what I've been able to accomplish. And really, he, from his position of influence, was able to talk to teachers and really convince them, because now it was a teacher who was respected with great trajectory, who was given the message, not the ESL teacher, not the guidance counselor, but a teacher that actually has success with this experience. The other thing that we needed even to leverage more is there's no prerequisite to take an AP course. So how can we continue sending this message to teachers and to students and to families? And at the time, we had a grant from the Massachusetts Math Science Inside institution that provided support for the STEM and English AP courses, and they provide professional development, study session payment. We sort of became partners with that work. Say we're not just doing STEM courses or English, we want to do more, but how can we leverage your resources? How can you help us with this? And they were all on board with that. So we're going to do this before we go on this breakout session. I'm going to, we're going to assign a 5-minute break so people could shut their screen, walk, stretch, use the bathroom. We actually going to put you in breakout rooms before the break. So when you come back from the break, you'll be in your breakout room. So this is what I want you to think about. What are some barriers and opportunities at your district schools that you could identify? I share some from my work. What are some that you're able to identify and share with them? And then the person with the June birthday or closest to June will report one opportunity you identified and one barrier. So we'll give you 10 minutes. So we'll have a period of 15 minutes, 5 minutes for break. You'll come back and have 10 minutes of this breakout exercise. So I'm going to ask Rachel, send everyone to a breakout session. You go on your 5-minute break first and then come back and finish up with a 10-minute conversation. And then someone from the group will report back one barrier and one opportunity that you shared amongst each other. Okay. Thank you. Great. So before we have people share out, I just want to remind everyone, there is a PDF of this slide deck. I'm going to ask Rachel to put it in the chat. I know a few people came in a little bit later. It will be posted as part of the resources in the app of the conference. So I just wanted to let you know that. And so all of this information and the links will be included there. So I know we had 2 rooms. So I'm going to ask the first room if you want to share out one barrier and one opportunity that you identified. If there's a volunteer. And you could unmute yourself. How about someone from group 2?
I think we were the group 2, and I came late to the presentation because my other presentation ended.
Okay.
So I came late and I haven't been able to participate in the discussion.
Okay. So basically the question was, what are some barriers and opportunities that you see at your district and school for students, multilingual students participating in advanced coursework?
Since I teach newcomers and ELD 1 students, it's a little bit hard for them. They're just at the stage of adjustment, at the beginning stage of adjustment. Most of my students have a very low level of English. Although some of my students were able for the next semester a little bit catch up with some of the courses, and then were able to participate in a higher level courses. To be honest, I haven't been able to follow through or attend their classes because it's a pull-out class. So that's why it's like a little bit hard for me right now to say something. But I do differentiate. I try to differentiate my lessons, since I have from the 8th grade to 12th grade students in one class. So I try to differentiate the activities and tasks and then the assessments for various levels of students.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. We're going to move on, but it's important to think about mapping the system and really looking at what are the barriers and what are the opportunities. So with the barriers, we want to tackle those barriers, whether it's having conversation with the administration or with our colleagues, with families, with students themselves. And then looking at leveraging opportunities or strengths from the school community or district to really scale up. So this is, again, an important step to ensuring that we're building those opportunities, those bridges for multilingual students, regardless of the EPL level. We're not just saying this is only for the higher level students with higher level proficiency or lower. This is for all multilingual students, which I believe, in my experience, could take. And I have testimonials at the end of the presentation. I don't know if I'll be able to share it. If time permits, I'll pull out a few examples, but it could be done. This could be done, but it's a process, and these principles will really help you get there. Move to the next slide. Okay, principle 4 and 5 are kind of similar and interconnected, so I'm going to really mention them very quickly. Working with others, like I said, it's important to identify key players for your team instruction. So you need a team, you need different voices, not only for them to give their insight from their perspective, but you need people that could speak up with their circle of influence, with their peers, with others, the kinds of shifts you want to make in instruction and opportunities for multilingual students. So in key players, we have the teachers, we have AP teachers, ESL teachers, bilingual teachers, SPED teachers, school counselors. We need administration to be representative because you might identify a barrier, a policy like we did. The policy of AP Spanish was a systemic structure. We also needed to speak with the administration to give the permission to allow this AP Human Geography teacher to have one section just for multilingual students. So you need people at the administration level who are making those type of decisions to really be at the table and be listeners, but also contributors to the conversation. And then family and community. We cannot do this by ourselves. We can't be the only ones responsible for pushing our students to create these opportunities. My experience with multilingual families is that they all want their best for their children. They want their best. They want to make sure they have the opportunities. If you get them on board with the knowledge, you give them the resources, they'll be your best allies, and they actually will push your students to really be successful. So that's principle 4. Really work with others. You have to bring others to the table. And principle 5, it's also it's interconnected, is distribute leadership. In other words, not only do you bring people to the table, but assign tasks and responsibilities for everyone. So everyone, this is a shared responsibility and ownership. If we do our part, we could make this happen. So district supports. We needed them to be on board. We needed them to provide PD opportunities, materials, paid teachers for extra time. This is your contribution to the cause. School leadership, you need to make changes to policy. You need to make sure you have structures like scheduling, school-wide expectations. You're the main messenger and leader for the school community. We can't just expect ESL teachers to do that or school counselors to do that. School leadership really needs to take that ownership. So it's not just about having different people at the table, but have people own a piece of the pie and be responsible to carry it out to make sure the implementation action plan actually happens. Teachers, so teachers could review AP potential. They could recommend students. So that's an ownership we put to teachers. You could also promote more multilingual students to AP courses or honors courses. You get the AP potential, you recommend your own students. You also be open-minded to really embrace the diverse population. I know AP teachers were used to teaching a certain type of students, but that's not equitable. And these students do deserve, is their right, and we're violating their rights if we don't create those opportunities. We read it at the beginning. School counselors do the same thing. They also could meet with students, review transcript, attend and run AP nights. Families and students, participate in all of these activities, attend the AP boot camp, attend the assemblies, go to the after school support. We created a support system 3 times a week. We had bilingual college students come. It was all coordinated by the ESL teacher to get additional support for these students. And then the community, we added a community piece aside of families, where we had people from the community volunteer. We created a mentoring program with multilingual, multicultural adults from the community, professions from the community. They also provided, the college students provided the tutoring, and we had occasional guest speakers as well. So everyone had a responsibility. So that is a very important principle to keep in mind. And the last principle is to really foster a culture of learning. Like it's a journey, and we don't have all the answers all the time or initially. So we have to make sure that through meetings, we really continue this collaboration, that we share information and knowledge with each other through school-wide meetings, guest speakers, share successes, share best practices, department meeting, coaching, having coaches, both at the school level, the multilingual education department, sending their coaches, and really thinking about having a culturally responsive approach to teaching all students regardless of the class. So the coaching was also an approach of really nurturing this culture of learning. And then intentional training, so conferences, workshop, book studies, to really nurture a culture of learning of everyone. And we didn't want to go in and tell teachers, now you got to do this. We really wanted to not only provide support for our students, but our teachers also needed to be considered. Where are the areas of opportunities to learn more, to feel they have it? And like the same thing I said about families, our families want their best for their students, and our teachers, I believe, at the core also want the best. They want to teach, but sometimes they may find themselves not equipped or not with the right resources to really support our diverse learning. So this was a big focus in creating a culture of learning through this process of really building bridges for multilingual students to take advantage of advanced coursework. The last few things, we're not going to do a breakout room because of time, but really think about, after this presentation, what is one thing I could do to bring back to my community, whether if you're in a school or at the district level, to really get at least the conversation started. We mentioned, 3 things at the beginning that you could really think about changing the mindset, and really thinking about the core values, and really thinking about data and how can you follow some of these principles to really break down those barriers and build bridges for our multilingual students to have equity and access to these educational opportunities. So think about that. I also, in the PDF, and I'm going to ask Rachel to also share it in the chat, I wrote this article that really encapsulates some of these principles, not in this way, but the main themes and ideas are encapsulated here. You can use this article to share with colleagues and have discussions about it. And there are some testimonials there about successes of our students that were part of this initiative. I want to make sure I leave at least 5 minutes for questions, but I shared a lot of things that we did. What was the result? So the result was that we saw a 50% increase of participation among Latino students, and we saw an increase in different types of AP courses they started participating. No longer was AP language the most popular. We saw students going into English language, social studies, math, science, art. Also, the participation in performance qualifying scores tripled for multilingual students. So these were not just Latino students, but various ethnic and language representation. The first year of implementation, we ranked number 6 in the state of Massachusetts of qualifying score for Latino students. We had the most 5 in the entire state. And the beauty of it, is that we maintain momentum. It didn't dwindle down. Like, we actually broke a huge wall. And after this first year, we didn't have to do those assemblies at all. After that, we really, when you think about our hypothesis, we were able to dismantle that completely. Now students were seeing themselves as smart, capable, and AP student. Like I said, we didn't have to do any more assemblies. We continue still collaborating with families, but it wasn't as intense. Now we were having lines outside of our guidance office for students to participate. And every year we grew and grew and grew and grew in numbers and qualifying scores. And we even had students with disabilities that were multilingual students even take advantage of these opportunities. And another great trend that we saw, more students were taking 2 AP courses at the time. And it was a major culture shift for our school, for our teachers, for our students. So this could be done, and only took us 1 year. But if you follow these principles and you really create these structures and follow through, I'm very confident based on my experience, you'll be able to see the result. In the before I give you a chance for the questions included here are our students. These are our students that took advantage of all those opportunities that I shared with you. These are emerging bilinguals at different APL levels. This student right here, by the time she graduated, she started taking AP Spanish, AP Human Geography, that section. By the time she was a senior, she was taking AP Calculus, AP Government, and AP Physics, A's in all of them, qualifying scores in all of them, got accepted into her choice of school. She was one of the students I interviewed and said, why are you not taking AP? You have A's and B's from Dominican Republic. So it means I don't think I could. That class is not for me. So these stories are amazing, very inspiring, all of them, and you'll be able to read all of them. It's kid from Vietnam, Colombia, Erica, who was born here, but still considered a multilingual student or former English learner. Again, I wish I could just talk about these students. She was a student from El Salvador with very traumatic experience, and how again, I wish I could tell you the story behind Jency and the success of the student. Honduras, Noelia's from Dominican Republic, Nepal. And this was my tagline in the AP posters. It's not where you come from, it's where you're going. So I just want to thank you for being active participants. I want to wish you a lot of luck and in your pursuit to equity, social justice, and access for our multilingual students. And now if you have a few questions, you could unmute yourself, or you could type it in the chat, and Rachel will read it for me.